Hey everybody, Mike Canales here from the Healthcare Facilities Leadership Program at OCTC, and this is part 4 of a series of making a case for a developmental pathway. But before I do that, I want to remind you about the upcoming webinar on March 16th at 11:30 a.m. Central Time. It's been 9 years since the program's been around, and we're having our 9th year update. We've made some great progress. Love to share that with you. Also, like to share with you a vision for where this needs to go to finish that hammer to head honcho pathway. We're pretty much already there to get folks there, but I think we need to specialize this just a little bit more to really meet the needs of our industry. But I also want to share with you about this idea of why do we need a pathway, and what is the justification when it comes to this part 4 of this series. Because we need to address the complexities, right, and the expectations of the industry and the changes that have happened over the last really 10 years for sure, maybe a little bit longer, but there have been some major changes in our industry. If you came into this industry in the 80s and the 90s, like I did, and you look at it today, back then it was a fire hose. It really was. But now you take a look at the things that have changed even more recently and kind of where it's going. Now, mind you, this presentation about where it is. I got another one coming up about where it's going, right, in addition to this. And I'm going to talk about that. So let's get to this next slide here. And this slide really talks about some of the changes we've seen in the last 10 to 20 years, let's say, but really 10 to 15 and inside of that. And we start to look at this list. Sprinkler just happened to come up big on the word cloud here. Sprinkler systems, whether it comes to things hanging on the pipe, whether it comes to sprinkler heads or, themselves, all the things you have to check, the recalls, the alerts, the dry systems, whether it comes to maintaining enough sprinkler heads in your box and checking them and updating that on a regular basis. These things have kind of been there, but now they're being extracted out and they're being they're being enforced, right? We know we've all felt that. But you look at other things like Arc Flash. You look at USP 797 and 800 as relates to pharmacies. You look at ICRA 1.0 and now 2.0, right? PICRA. You look at things like infection prevention in general and all things happening that with surfaces. You look at ventilation, ASHRAE 188. That's going to be completely rewritten and revised. They were doing that before the pandemic hit. What do you think is going to happen as a result of the pandemic? We're going to see all kinds of changes. Think of medical gas, 60/40 certification, competency-based training, emergency management, barriers. We thought we knew a lot about barriers. No way. There's so much more we need to grow and learn. We're getting into the very details of barriers and membranes and intermediate material and dealing with, the right way, the right method, right methodology for treating barriers. Speaking of barriers, what about smoke partitions and smoke barriers and fire barriers and firewalls and things like that? Again, just learning those pieces and learning them well. Fire drills, right? All the changes that have happened around fire drills. And I think I may have mentioned emergency management already. NFPA 80 indoors, what's happened there. Alternate equipment maintenance is here. Did I talk about RPTs, relocatable power taps in patient vicinity? How about OSHA? So here are just a few things. This isn't everything. Workplace violence, right? These are just a few things. Switchgear sequencing and ligature, right? These are just a few things, although they are pretty hefty things that have really come on the scene in the last few years. And so I know you can agree with me. This is dramatic. We have seen dramatic expectations and changes. We talk about even the outpatient environment, right? All this is being applied to the outpatient environment, ambulatory surgical centers, right? And then business occupancies. And so there are a few more things. So this is really a very big, I would put this content body of work, okay, with the original body of work together. And I would say you take this body of work and you know what? I'd put it up against nearly any job at a hospital, PhD, master's, whatever. It is a deep body of work, especially if you're going to do it well. Like I said, when you first came in the industry, this was already a fire hose kind of job, right? It took 2 or 3 accreditation cycles to kind of get that down a little bit. What is it now? And at the end of the day, I'll tell you what it is. It is really like eating an elephant, right? And again, this adage is appropriate for this. How do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. Okay, so what does that mean? How does that relate to this? Well, academics, this is where academics are strong. Because what you're going to do in academics, you're going to take several thousands of hours if you get through an associate's degree. You're going to be introduced, okay? You're going to reinforce. You're hopefully going to get to a high competent level, maybe even master. And how do you do that? By doing the assignments, by reading the content, by learning it in a layered way, by putting those gaps to filling in the foundation and then layering on top of that and building towards some very large, important, critical competencies, right? Coming out of a good program. And if you're doing that with a program like this, Work and Learn, I think it's like a master degree job. I mean, you're actually learning it and applying it. And I hear that all the time with my students and my graduates. They apply at work what they've learned in the program. It's hard for people to slow down, and nothing against professional development, but professional development is like grabbing nuggets. And I love professional development, and you get nuggets. Academic development is laying a really rock solid foundation, if you can, for working in the industry. And when you work in that building, okay, healthcare buildings are all kind of different, got different cultures, buildings themselves are a little different, different vintages, different outbuildings, ambulatory surgical, oncology, you name it, long-term care, residential, assisted. You may have all kinds of different complexities where you are, regional, geography, so on and so forth. But learning it where you are and taking the program, I think, is a tremendous way for our profession to develop the pathway. So that's kind of my thesis here, is that, doing a pathway, because of all the complexities, because of the growing comprehensive nature and expectations of the job, we really need to do this. We really need to make this the way that we develop our folks in the industry. This may be a little bit challenging for some of us thinking, what are you trying to say, Mike? We're not, we're not qualified, or, we should all do this. No, I'm saying we need to have a starting point to start doing it differently. And I've already seen from the students that come in the program who already work in the industry how quickly they accelerate and learn and grab onto this and just start to build on it. I have conversations week in and week out, almost day in and day out, with my students and my graduates about things that they're doing. And they talk to me in ways I'm blown away about what they're doing, what they know, how they're using their knowledge, and where they're going. They go way beyond where I went in the industry because of the foundation they have in place. So I hope you enjoyed this session. Again, going to be a little challenging here in the next couple of sessions here. This is just, I think, my assessment, having done this now for 9 years, going on 10 years, I really think our industry has a great opportunity here, and now is the time to develop a pathway for our profession. So I hope you can join me. Thank you again for taking the time with me today and being here with me for a few minutes. And I got 3 more sessions to go. I think these next 3 get a little more challenging for us. But like I said, the next one coming up is going to be about where it's going. What are some additional things we need to be doing, and an additional justification for creating that. This is why I really talk about the bachelor's, master's, because where it's going. I think I've done a good job with the things we talked about here today. But at the end of the day, there's so much more, right? There's so much more. Again, I appreciate your time. Thanks again.